All right. We are rolling here in Vermont. How's it going, guys?
Going good.
Going good. I'm sitting here with Pete Lajoie and my co-host Morgan Gouveia. And we actually just got done cleaning your furnace. So
Yeah, ready for the winter.
Yeah, ready for the winter. And Pete, you've been my taxidermist now for probably 7-8 years or something like that. And I know you've done a couple heads for my dad, in like the 90s, early 2000s or whatever. And I know a lot of guys around the Northeast know you for the work that you do and top-notch quality. How long have you been doing taxidermy?
Started in 87,
87.
just as a hobby.
Yep.
Kind of played around with it a little bit. Worked at Killington full-time and doing some deer heads. And finally got to the point where I had too much taxidermy and got sick of climbing lift towers.
Yep.
So I went full-time, probably around 93, 4.
Yep.
About the time you were born.
Right around? Yeah, I was 96.
Yeah.
I was 96. So, yeah, you've been at it for, better than 30 years.
37 years.
37. That's pretty good.
Now, would you say what got you into taxidermy? Would you say that you had like a artistic background? Would you say you needed to be an artistic background to get into taxidermy?
It doesn't hurt. But
Yeah.
my brother lived next to a taxidermist in Mass.
Yeah.
And he kind of played around with it a little bit and got me into it. And he got out of it, and I stayed with it.
Oh, awesome.
But, artistic helps.
It helps for sure.
Yeah.
So you always did you draw or paint or something like when you were a kid growing up?
I was going to school for architecture and stuff like that, but, something
makes
artistic.
sense.
But,
Oh,
yeah.
And I'm sure for people that have seen your work in the past, you can tell by the depth that you're a very detailed person. That's why I was kind of wondering about the artistic background, because you can definitely tell your work separated from others. And I know I've read an article in the past. We've talked about this. And it might even been you that wrote part of it, but somebody talked about or had an interview with you. And one of the things that you pointed out was the first thing you see is the tear duct in an eye on a deer, that it, like a lot of taxidermists sometimes will fill them in. And you're like, that's just not natural. So,
Yeah. You can tell if you look at an animal, you look at a picture of a live deer, everything's soft.
Yeah.
If you look at one that's mounted incorrectly, the guy says, close enough. You can tell all of a sudden it looks painted, everything's black or white on it.
Right.
If you look at a quality mount, there's no black or white to it. Everything's soft. The hair patterns are soft. The ear edges are tight.
Yeah.
Everything like that.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting when we were doing the work for you before. You had made the comment that you've been doing it so long that even your wife can go to a show with you, and she's like, that's going to be the winner.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she'll go to the world show with me, and she'll say, that's the best looking piece, or too bad you're not going to win because this one's better than yours.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah. So when I was younger, I always thought I wanted to be a taxidermist, but then the older I got and the more I saw, like you pointed out, the artistic side, I think you need to have it really, because it's almost like painting or drawing. It's like you're making something come to life that's not alive anymore.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
It takes a lot of, that part of the imagination or whatever. What made you advance in taxidermy? Was it when you got into competitions, or was it it's just the way you are, you want to always do better, or what was?
No, I mean, I started like every taxidermist. I want to do every deer head in the state, which is stupid. But I went to the first Yankee Sportsman's up in St. Albans when they had it up there. And I had a booth there. Bryce Towsley was with me sharing a booth, Outside Connection he was running then. And everybody comes up, the mounts look great and all this. And I had this old guy come up to me. He was probably in his 50s, old for me then. And he says, your mounts look pretty good. He said, but you want to see what a deer looks like, come over to my booth. And I'm just like,
dang,
who the hell is this asshole? And I was pissed. I said, who is this guy? And finally, Bryce said, you got to go check out his stuff, see what he's talking about. So I went over to his booth, and it's like, holy shit. I said, these deer are alive. And this guy was Mike Adams.
Okay.
And I don't know if everybody knows about Mike Adams, but he trained under Joe Meter, which is Mr. Whitetail in this country.
Oh,
Yeah, and Mike, he took me under his wing, never charged me a dime for lessons.
no shit.
I went up to his house for weekends and stuff like that. And,
Yep.
and he just kind of prodded me, got me into competing,
Yep.
and that's where you really hone your skills.
That's when you start to advance. Is
Yeah.
when you start competing.
When you got to have a thick skin because you're going to take a piece you think is perfect and you put it in up against everybody else's in there, and the judge looks at it and said, "This thing's awful," but then he tells you how to fix it,
Right.
and how to read reference, live deer reference, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I'm doing what Mike did for me. I'm working with other taxidermists now. I've visited a few and talked to. I had a guy from New Hampshire come over last week, visited me at the shop.
That's cool.
He's going to get into competing and stuff. So
Yeah. I think that's the key, because it seems like, taxidermists, if they're not getting into that world, I mean, if somebody comes in to get a head from them, they're most of the time they're not going to be critiquing the head that somebody just, you know what I mean? They're gonna be like, "Oh, thank you. That's my, my buck looks great." And especially if they're paying a bunch of money for it, they're not going to want to believe that it's bad or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that is the key to getting better, is the competition, like you said.
Yeah.
it'd be kind of like a mechanic.
Yeah.
You're bringing your car to a mechanic that's not certified. He's worked on his buddy's tractor and done all this other, and he can get his wife's car running. He can keep that old car running, but compared to he's not up to date on everything like that.
Right. And is there like magazines and stuff that you get for like taxidermy? Like, I'm just not sure.
There are.
There like forums you can join and stuff online.
There's all kinds, just like anything else. There's all kinds of forums online now, and there's what I call YouTube taxidermists. And I tell people most of the taxidermists that are on YouTube are on there because they got nothing to do.
Yep.
And the reason they got nothing to do is because their mounts suck.
Yeah.
I'll say it. That's how it is. There's very few guys that are on the internet that are doing any kind of great work.
Because if they're doing great work, they're so busy they can barely keep their.
They're too busy, or they're giving classes, or they're judging and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I would say too, I mean, when you walk in, like one of the first things I notice here, obviously your shop's not here anymore. You've moved your shop, but even since you have to move this stuff to the new shop, you still have a lot of your ribbons up on the wall. When the way I guess I look at it is if you go into a taxidermist shop and you see ribbons on the wall, to me, that tells me you put yourself out there for constructive criticism. You wanted somebody to tell you, like, okay,
what's wrong?
Right. Well, how do I have to get more perfect? Because I kind of relate it to turkey calling. People don't realize it, and they're like, oh, you don't need to be a competitive turkey caller to call a turkey. And you're right, you don't. But the difference between that and probably taxidermy is we are probably the perception of wanting to see perfection. And when we go into that, it doesn't matter what you are, we critique things down to the minute little things. So it just very much I can relate to what you guys do in that aspect, because I mean, you can see it in the detail here and why you have those ribbons on the wall.
I have a wild question for you. How many deer heads do you think you've done in your life now? Do you have any idea?
Thousands.
Thousands.
Yeah, just thousands.
Are they getting easier as you go still, or no?
Getting harder.
They're getting harder?
Older, the eyes are.
So you hit a point.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be able to put 3-4 deer heads together in a day.
Really?
Now we're down. I can assemble 2. That's considering the forms are prepped, the hides are ready to go, everything like that. But it takes a little longer as you get older. It's like anything else.
Like anything.
Yeah.
But at your peak, you were doing 3.
Yeah, it was like golfing. I used to be able to, play in the 80s and stuff. And I played the other day, and it wasn't under 100. So, but I hadn't played for 3 years. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, being a full-time taxidermist, how was that for your hunting? Would you say it was good, or was it bad?
No, if you want to be a taxidermist, you can't hunt. I mean, I live in Vermont. I've shot some decent deer in Vermont, but I decided years ago that if I'm going to get any whitetail hunting in, I've got to go somewhere else where I can hunt earlier.
Yep.
So I hunt Oklahoma, and what I do is I get down, and I'm usually back by opening day of rifle here, so I can take deer in. But if I'm not, my wife will take them in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I also decided that, summer is the slower time. So I just decided, let's check out Africa. And I started hunting Africa, and I booked hunts in Africa, which was nice. I was able to make 6 trips.
Right, because
Yeah.
that's one thing the listeners can't see on the video.
And I'll go around after, and
Right.
I'll film all of his heads and
because it's
stuff.
pretty intense. The wall kind of behind us to our right is all African game for the most part. There might be a
And then
deer.
you got
so-
Yeah,
the
pretty
Cape,
much.
the
Yeah.
Cape buffalo back there,
yeah.
which you guys were talking about a little bit. You can retell that if you'd like, the Cape buffalo story.
Yeah, we were hunting South Africa, and I was hunting plains game, and my buddy got a call on his phone. He said, "We've got a buffalo that has gotten into a bird sanctuary, and we've got to put it down." He says, "You want to go hunt a buffalo?" I've got a 308 in my hand. I said, "Yeah, sure." So we took off like a bat out of hell in the truck to get to where the buffalo was. And they hand me a 500 Krieghoff double. Never shot in my life.
It's like a shotgun, isn't it? Like that.
Yeah, it's more than a shotgun.
You
believe
know,
me,
shells
yeah.
that
Oh
long.
my
Yeah.
gosh.
The rounds is big around with my thumb.
Oh.
So we tracked this buffalo down, and he was bedded. And he was 20 yards away. I mean, he was exhausted from running. He'd been run off.
From you guys?
No, he'd been run off by lesser bulls. He was an old dogger bull, basically past his breeding prime. And what happens is the other herd bulls will get together and run him off. And that's what they did. I mean, they put the horns to him and chased him off. So we get to him. He's bedded down. We're throwing rocks at him, trying to get him to stand up because you don't want to shoot a buffalo laying down. It just you can't get a bullet in him. And he would just keep his rear end towards us the whole time. We just kind of move around a little bit, and he's watching us and moving at the same time. And finally, my buddy said, "If you can see any part of his shoulder, let him have it." So finally, I saw a shoulder and a shot, and I'm up in the air with recoil, and I hear another bang, and then I look down, and there's this buffalo just in a cloud of dirt at 10 feet. And it was instant. And I think I shot again and missed him.
Yeah.
But
Wow. That must be intense. I can't imagine something like that. I mean, it's crazy seeing, because I mean, it looks like a monster.
Right.
Like
They're huge.
Yeah, they're huge.
he's probably 1,600 pounds.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're still in the top 5 dangerous game, right?
Oh, yeah.
For Africa. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they taste good?
That one didn't.
No.
He was used for leopard bait.
Oh.
Yeah, because he had been run so long.
Yep.
Any animal that runs like that, like eland or something like that, if you shoot them and you end up chasing them for miles, they're very, they're
Stress. Or
yeah,
whatever.
it gets into the muscles and stuff, and they're, you might as well boil it.
No kidding. Yeah, they're ugly creatures, but they're just crazy looking. We definitely don't have anything like that around here.
So I definitely have 2 questions for you.
Yeah.
Kind of going from that. What in your mind was your favorite thing to mount? Like if you were to pick one, what was your favorite thing in your career that you've mounted?
Probably my sleeping deer.
Yeah.
The sleeping giant.
Yeah, I
we'll
put
get a shot
about
of that.
400 hours into that.
No kidding.
For competition. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big famous one too.
Yeah, I won North American champion in what's called the Bruchac Award for the best whitetail in the world. Yeah,
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
400 hours.
that's a guesstimate.
Right.
I mean, it was a project. I went to
It's a
the
lot, though.
Nationals the year before and took a blue ribbon in the professional. In the professional. And it's probably out of 60 deer heads, he was probably top 3 or 4 in that group.
No kidding.
And I was after that, I was determined to do something that had never been done, and something that I was going to either win or get my ass handed to me.
Right, right.
So
Because most of them are probably upright poses, right? Like,
yeah. No one had ever
typical.
done a closed eye deer sleeping or anything like that. No one's done one since
No kidding.
that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Where'd the rack come from? I'm sure you've told me, but
Well, the rack, it's the same one as this, actually. It came from New Brunswick. It was shot by a guy in the 70s. And Gary Merrill from Rochester owned it for a while. Wow. And he let me replicate it. These are replicas that I've made.
No kidding.
I mean, what does he tape out at as a 6-point?
He's 168 net as a 6-point.
Gosh.
Oh my god!
32-inch beams on them.
Oh my god!
I mean, the
World
mass
class.
alone on that deer is
And you said New
incredible.
Brunswick?
New Brunswick, yeah.
Oh my god! Can you imagine seeing that?
And
thing
that's a
in Maine?
replica.
That's a replica.
My God, that is
They do
incredible.
good, don't they?
Yeah.
You know what's crazy about how like angles on deer like are so like just for like game camera pictures,
Right.
Because that buck and that buck don't look the same because of the angle,
Right.
You know what I mean? That is definitely more of his.
Yeah, we were able to see up on his beams.
Yes,
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny. That's how game cameras. I think a lot of times they're deceptive.
Oh yeah.
You know, you get a picture of one, you're like, oh, that's a good one, and then you get another angle of them, and you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
where the heck all that rat come from?
Oh,
But
for
yeah.
sure. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Man.
following that first question, you probably just answered it too. Do you think whitetails are probably your favorite
Species.
as far as species wise?
Well, I do more of them. I think they're one of the prettier animals in the world. But
Right. Right.
They're, I mean, just like an impala, an African impala,
Yep.
which is over there. Just they're so sleek and incredible. I'd hunt Africa just to hunt impala.
No
Is that
kidding.
the one far left there?
Yeah, the orangey colored animal with the semi-spiral horns. But you see them in hundreds to 1,000 a day sometimes.
Yeah.
And they're so skittish. They make a whitetail look like
Oh, really?
like
They're flighty.
zoned out. I mean, yeah.
No kidding.
If you shoot them with a bow, the PHs will tell you to shoot to miss. They want you to aim under the animal
Because they're that fast.
because they will drop that much
No kidding.
at
And
the
wow.
shot. Yeah,
Do they taste pretty good?
yeah. Leopards love them. They're really good. Yeah. Leopards like anything, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. I didn't see one in here. Did you kill a leopard?
No.
What'd you do? No.
Actually, I went on a leopard. I was scheduled a leopard hunt in South Africa, and the year we went over there was a drought, and South African government canceled the hunt.
Oh, no kidding.
Which worked out because there were so many animals that had died from the drought that the leopards, you couldn't hunt them over bait anyway. 'cause
Right.
There was just bait everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It must be a totally different. I mean, obviously pictures and videos you can kind of see it, but is it a total different world over there? Like just obviously temperature wise and the scene and settings, because it's fairly flat, right? It's not
Oh no,
There's some mountains, right?
It's a lot like our country.
really.
Yeah, it's very arid. It's like the West
Yeah.
and stuff. And we go there July, August, which is their winter.
Yeah.
So we go out. You go out in the morning. It's probably right around freezing.
Yeah.
And it warms up quick. As soon as the sun hits the horizon, it'll get up to about 70
Wow.
Yeah.
and stay there. So you go out in shorts with a jacket and a hat.
Right.
And then by the time you go out to where you're going in the truck, you're stripped down to shorts and a shirt.
Yeah.
Wow.
But the sounds are different. Everything, the birds are different.
It's a different world.
Right.
And I mean, we consider ourselves hunters, but until you have hunted with an African PH, we don't know shit.
Right.
They know every plant, every bird, every insect,
Really?
and they have to take tests on all this stuff before
Well-
they get their PH license.
Something I've always wondered too is when I've watched some of those hunts and they talk about trackers in the Northeast and some of the northern part of the West.
No,
I couldn't imagine taking one of those trackers and putting them on a whitetail track here.
Oh,
Because I mean,
it wouldn't be fair.
no, because
Really,
I mean they're
poor deer.
they're tracking them. All the
In the dirt.
as small as a deek.
Yep.
They're tracking that.
Is that a deek deek?
No, but that's a clip springer.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't have one of them. But
I'd
yeah,
call that a deek deek.
Yeah, you would. But no, I mean the trackers are incredible. They're following. They call it spoor, which is the blood trail or whatever.
Yeah.
And if the animal's running and just a speck of blood hits dry sand or whatever, it'll kind of roll up into a little tiny ball.
Yep.
And these guys are they're going around in between the tracks and they're picking up and rubbing them between their fingers and it's like, yeah, there's blood.
No kidding. That's
It's
pretty
just-
crazy.
They're just expert.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I
trackers.
hunted with my buddy Leon Mayer on his hunt, and I gut shot an eland. I mean, how do you gut shot an eland? It's a 1,500-pound animal. And I shot it at like 30 yards.
Oh,
But he turned as I shot, and I caught him sideways on the stomach, which sticks out. We tracked that animal for about 6 hours, just following his track, and it took us that long to get enough bullets in him after that.
No kidding. And I that had to have been pretty intense too, because it's not like you're picking through all those other tracks too, because I can't imagine it was the only eland that was right there.
No, usually when you're eland, you get into a group of males or something like that, and there might be 8 or 10 of them.
Right.
And stuff like that. Or you get in, they may have a herd of females with them, and, you get 15, 20 animals, and
Right.
there's just tracks everywhere.
Yeah.
You get into buffalo, you may have 100,
Right.
and,
Yeah,
and they can sort those tracks out
That's crazy.
in the sand.
That is crazy.
For individual ones, yeah.
Yep.
What I can't understand about Africa, and I've always had this question, maybe you know the answer. There's so many species of like deer, elk type. Is it just more deer species, right?
Well, they're not deer.
What are they?
Now you ask me, right?
Yeah. They're like an elk, deer thing, whatever. All I'm saying is there's all these creatures with antlers and horns. Or actually, maybe that's
they
the
all
difference.
have horns.
That's the
Yeah.
difference.
There are no the only
That's the
antlered
answer.
ones in Africa. First hunt I ever went over there, it's a fenced hunt, which
Yep.
30, 40,000 acres under fence.
Mm-hmm.
But we're cruising around looking for animals and stuff, and there's a fallow deer. And it's like, really?
And they have points, right?
They have antlers.
Yes.
Right.
It's like,
Okay, so that answers my question.
Right. They kind of look like a mix of an elk and a moose.
yeah,
Right.
and they don't belong in Africa, but they were brought there. to hunt,
Right.
so it's like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of like Texas. A lot of the game
yeah.
animals in Texas aren't from Texas.
No, you can get anything you want in Texas. You
Right.
can shoot Lord Derby eland. You can shoot animals that aren't even in their natural habitat
Right.
alive anymore in Africa.
Really?
Horned
They brought 'em-
scimitar horned oryx.
Yeah.
They don't have. There's no huntable numbers in Africa.
That's
No,
a hell of a
geez.
name.
So you go to Africa. So you go to Texas.
Right.
That was my question, though, is why are they always spikes? All of them are spikes. And then you come to North America and they have points. Everything
Yeah.
has points.
Yeah.
But it's because they're horns, not
horns.
antlers.
Right.
In all of our horned animals, like all the sheep species,
Right.
Except for in our pronghorn antelope have spikes.
you're right.
Right.
And they're also the only horned animal in the world that sheds their horns.
They're kind of like aliens.
They're
They-
and they do. They look like aliens. 'cause
Speed goats.
Yeah, they've got like a 300-degree field of vision. A whitetail has 270.
So they're like all
Oh,
the
yeah.
way.
Yeah.
yeah, that's why I think a lot of those guys decoy so much because their eyesight is so pinpoint. I mean, one little movement and the hunt's over.
And they just run. Eland's the same way. If you're eland hunting and you spook them, they're gone. They'll just keep running.
Oh
They
man.
won't. Elk's the same way, I guess.
Yeah.
They just keep running.
They're just, Well, it's probably their only like line of defense, I guess, from those.
Well, and
predators.
they're even more of a, I guess you would call them a herd type animal anyways, because they don't, like with a whitetail, a lot of times you're catching them, it might be one deer traveling. Not always, but I mean, okay, you take muzzleloader with a doe, you get groups of doe, but I mean, for the most part, really, when you go out to the Midwest, you see a lot of pronghorn in big groups, and when one runs, they all run. So, and that
They're strong in numbers.
right,
Yeah. No trees.
yeah.
In Africa, they've got predators that eat them too.
Oh yeah,
I mean, in our area, you got bears that'll eat fawns,
right.
stuff like that,
Right.
or coyotes that may run down. They'll run down wounded deer
Right.
or sick deer, or they'll take out a good, healthy deer too. But
Rutted out buck.
right out,
Right,
but
right, I mean-
the guy's chased all over the hill.
What do you think?
Yeah.
We've got catamounts, bears, wolves, coyotes, and very small predators compared to jaguars,
You're saying
cheetahs.
North America?
Yeah,
Yeah.
jaguars, cheetahs, lions. Just hyenas, jackals. Yeah, they're just
And then poachers, right? Poachers are a really
Poachers, yeah.
big problem over there, more so than, we have poachers in North America too, but
right.
not like out there. I don't
Right,
think,
right.
but I guess I truly don't know. Now back to taxidermy. Do you have some things to tell the listeners, the guys? What are some things that you like to see them do for when they bring a hide into their taxidermist? Is there anything like specific that a lot of guys don't do that maybe they should?
I think you got to consider that as soon as that animal dies, it starts to rot. Okay, anything over 40 degrees starts to build bacteria, and bacteria is what causes your hair to slip.
Yeah.
And then you end up with a rotten thing. Consider, the deer as a prime steak. How long would you hang a prime steak in a tree before you ate it? Not very long, right?
Right.
No.
How long would you ride around with it in the back of your truck? A bear, how long would you shoot it at 70 degrees and you want to show all your buddies, and this is this black thing in the back of your truck and it's 70 degrees, and now that black thing is 120 in the back of your truck. Well, it doesn't take long to rot.
And the fat's a lot different on a bear too, for sure.
Yeah.
A lot more of it.
And you need to learn how to cape them off. I get probably 75% of my deer come from Midwest, guys that are on bow hunts and stuff. And I've taught a lot of them how to cape them out. I've given them scalpels and everything and directions on how to do it. And, the first one they do is a little bit rough, but, we teach them. Then we'll talk about dragging them out of the woods.
Yeah.
This guy right here is good at that.
Yeah.
They made forms just for you.
Yeah.
Because what they do is
Yeah.
I try to tell guys, if they're going to drag it, they don't have anything to drag it on, or jet sled or something. Drag it on one side. Let's ruin one side.
Yeah.
Keep one side good, because we can put it on a wall pedestal, which we've got a couple in here, and that hides that whole side that's screwed up, and we have one good side.
Right.
I am hard on you, aren't I?
You are. You're tough. You usually like to drag them on both sides.
And I
equal
fill
opportunity.
them. I fill them full of holes.
Because guys at track love to shoot them in the neck, because that's their first time they see that deer. He's looking right at
Yeah,
them.
right.
Yeah.
Or they hit him in the other end.
Oh yeah.
And then
the
the deer's wounded on the ground and he's flopping around, and they all seem to have to shoot him in the neck.
They do.
They got that big chest cavity to shoot. They still got to shoot him in the neck.
Yeah. Don't want to ruin any more meat, apparently.
Oh man.
I mean, I hunt Oklahoma all the time with a bow, and I've shot a few deer back a little too far because I didn't want to ruin the cape.
No kidding.
So I've got just the opposite,
Yeah.
Right.
Getting back on the ribs.
Yeah.
Different vision. You see it all the time, so you look at it a little different than most.
Yeah.
But I can definitely understand it. I mean, it would make more sense. Guys should be more conscious about, like, if you do kill a big deer and if you walk up to that deer and your instant thought is, I'm going to get this one mounted, the best thing to probably do is field dress it. Either get to an area where you can call a buddy to get some help, or throw your jacket over it and try to figure out a way that you can get it up off the ground, a sled, anything. Even if it's like a piece of that, like, sled that rolls out that you can just put it under the front shoulder. Right.
I got one of those. I'm going to start.
You know what really works good is an old tarp, just a little bit of a tarp.
I thought you were going to say packing them out.
Well, that'll work. No, but a tarp works good. We hunt in Oklahoma, and we have what's called plum thickets and cactus out there a lot of times, and we'll throw a blue tarp in the truck.
Yeah.
So if we get one, we have to drag it through that stuff. We'll wrap them in that, and I've done that, and I drag them out and we flip them over, and that whole tarp is shredded, but the cape's good.
Right. Yeah, saves a deer. What, a $9 tarp to save a $900 to $1,000 mount that's going to last forever and look good.
Yep.
Or a cart. I have a cart too.
Right.
No.
Carts are good, but they're hard to carry with you when you're.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
Leave it at the truck if you can have a buddy meet you and come back.
I'd like to be able to drive my truck to the end. That's why I hunt the Midwest.
Yeah.
You can drive almost anywhere because it's pretty flat where we hunt.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so is there anything else for guys that you see them do? I know I learned this past season with a buck I brought you, don't spray him. Don't spray the.
Yeah, you brought me one, and his head was the size of a football.
It looked like he weighed 350, man.
Yeah,
No
'cause
kidding.
what happens is guy will hang him from the hind legs, and then he'll wash out the chest cavity, or it'll rain. And what happens is that all that water gets in between the skin and the meat, and it just builds up like a balloon, and it'll help rot that hide real quick.
Yeah.
It can be. I think it speeds up the rotting process. Yours was okay. I mean, you got
brought
it
it
to
to
me
you
quick
the
enough
day
because you've been
after.
yelled at enough. So, but it's still they swell up so much you can't even see the eyes on it.
Right.
Yeah, that's
I have seen that. I mean, that's even with people that don't clean them out good enough. I've seen that happen too.
Yeah.
So that being said, that actually brings up something that's very curious to me, because I've always asked this question. Seems like everywhere else in the country, everybody likes to hang them by the back legs, but people from Maine hang them from the horns. Is there something to that? Does it actually, like, if you hang them from the antlers, like I said horns, if you hang them from the antlers like that, does it actually help the process with you? Because I've always thought almost the opposite. when you hang them from the antlers, it stretches that neck out because you got all that body weight pulling down on it. But
Yeah. It'll stretch the neck out, but it's not going to make any difference in the neck size.
gotcha. Yes.
That skin already knows what it's going to be. When you take that off, I can get that back to what it was.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so it will drain out better because
Right.
everything's going to drain out through the hindquarters
Right.
in the open cavity. So I like them, take the hide off when it's warm.
Right. So
Then you can hang them. I don't care if your meat rots. As long as that cape doesn't rot, I don't,
right, right. So pretty much the day you shoot it, even if you're going to let it hang, get it home, cape it off, have that part taken care of and let it, yep.
Then you can put it, if it's cool enough, you can hang it in the garage or something like that.
Right.
Or you can get it into a cooler and hang it for a week if you
Right.
want to age the meat. But, I've had deer come in that have hung in a climate control cooler for 2 weeks. And it dries everything out, and we can't turn the ears inside out very easily, and the lips and everything gets hard. It's just like beef jerky.
Right.
And it's awful hard to work with.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So in the end, taking the extra steps is going to give you a better product and make it easier on you
Oh, definitely.
through the whole process.
Yeah. I take mine off. It's the first thing we do. We cape them as soon as we get back to camp.
Yeah.
And
As soon as you shoot them.
Yeah. I mean, we
Yeah.
get them out of the woods. We take the hide off them, and I take the hide right off the head.
Yeah.
And I can tell a huge difference in all the little guard hairs that I'm able to save because bacteria hasn't built up in there.
Right,
yet.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the better you take care of a cape, the better the mount's going to turn out.
Yeah, you're giving it a better chance.
You get a better
That's
chance
right.
to be a
Yeah.
phenomenal mount.
Yep.
Cool. So don't shoot them in the neck. Don't drag them. Don't spray them full of water. Don't do all the things that I do, basically.
You're better off to go to a petting zoo
Yeah.
and just strangle one and bring it to me, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it's good. I mean, I think it's good information for guys to know because, I mean, you shoot a big buck like that, you want to try to give it the best chance you can to make it turn out good.
And plan ahead in your hunt. You plan ahead for all your hunts. Plan ahead in your taxidermy.
Right.
Call your taxidermist. See if he's taking them in or whatever. Make sure you know how to take care of the animal, like we talked about, and stuff like that. And you're ahead of the game. Yeah, if you don't get one, no big deal. But
At least you're starting that. Yeah, you're starting connection too, like
Yeah.
with the guy.
Right. So would you say, just as a quick overview, this would be a pretty good, when more is always better. Don't go less hair, right? Try to go like when you're when
this
you're
cape?
right when you're
Oh,
caping
caping
to the body, you would
Yeah.
probably go to the chop of that where
go to the breastbone.
yep to the breastbone meets the belly.
Yeah, cut the deer right in half there.
Yep.
Cut both front legs off right at the elbow.
Yep.
And then there's a brown and white hair pattern that come down the back of that leg.
Yep.
Just take your knife and cut from the inside, right down that line. You'll come to the armpit.
Yep.
And that brown and white line will continue around the armpit, stay out of the armpit. And once you clear the armpit, you cut a V up to the breastbone,
Gotcha.
and then you can peel everything off.
Yeah. I mean, sounds pretty self-explanatory when you explain it like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So after that process, okay, say we haven't gotten that far yet and I can't make it to you in a timely manner. Once you have it caped off, what's your best practice for get it to a freezer, would you say?
Yeah. If you're not able to take it off the head itself,
Yeah.
freeze it with the head in, just cut the neck off.
Yep.
You can cut it what's called the atlas joint,
Right.
right where the head hinges and stuff. And you can do that with a knife. You don't even need a saw.
Right, right.
And just wrap the hide up, put it in a plastic bag, double wrap it, and put it in a chest freezer.
Right. And would you prefer skin in and leave the hair out?
I want the hair out, and I also don't like the hide flipped up over the antlers and stuff.
Gotcha.
When I thaw them out, I hang them by the antlers, and it lets them
Roll
the
out.
hide
Okay.
fall out.
Yeah. So pretty much roll them right up to the back of the
Yep.
antlers there.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
put them in a contractor bag, something heavy.
Yep. Yep. Something to protect it from getting freezer burnt.
Yep.
Stuff like that. So would you prefer that people leave the head in just because of like the lips and the eyes? Because I know those can be pretty technical places where if you slip a little bit, that can be hard to fix.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, better to freeze it. But we also have CWD to deal with. So
Right.
there's a lot of states that you can't bring to Vermont.
The skull.
So in that case, if you can't do it, the best I tell everybody either learn how to do it or find a taxidermist there. They'll charge you $50
Right.
to
Yep.
pull the skin off,
Yep.
and then they'll freeze it or whatever.
Yep.
That's good information. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
A local taxidermist.
Yeah.
That's really good
And
stuff.
I get a lot of guys that travel and say, "Hey, I'm headed to Iowa. You
Yeah.
know, ton of a lifetime." He says, "I don't know how to take it out." I said, "Do you know anybody?" I said, "Yeah, my buddy Greg Cavallari's right in Iowa. Just give him a call.
That's perfect.
You know, he'll do it for you."
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
I would have never thought of that.
No.
That's good stuff.
I mean, that extra steps, I think,
yeah.
is going to definitely
Yeah,
make
'cause
toward having a better.
I think a lot of guys just have them Euro mounted because of the states
Right.
like that, and
They
they
Right.
don't know. Can't
Right.
bring the skull back, and they're not going to sit there and take 4 hours to try to get around all the stuff on the face. If you don't know what you're doing, I mean, it might as well be literally rocket science, you know?
Right.
But yeah, that's all good stuff. So changing gears a little bit here, how long have you been going down to Oklahoma?
22 years this year.
What made you go to Oklahoma?
My brother made me do it.
He did.
Actually, my brother had a TV show. Actually, it was called Camo Country
Okay.
in Massachusetts. It was on Nesson or something like that down there, and he had a hunt planned, a muzzleloader hunt. He said, "You want to go on it?" I said, "Yeah." I brought me and my dad went and a few other guys, and we get down there and we hunted, and they put us on a farm. I ended up not shooting a deer that year because I just didn't see anything I wanted. But we got done at the end of the hunt. The farmer come up to me. He says, "You guys want to lease this?" I said, "What do you mean?" He says, the outfitter that my brother was hunting through stiffed him. He said he refused to pay him. And I asked my brother, I said, "You want this?" He said, "No." I said, so I leased it from him. And we'd been on that same property. It's about 1,600 acres. And we just got thrown off this year.
Dang.
Oh, boy.
A lawyer from Texas had bought it, and his wife's an anti-hunter, and now it's like he gave us 2 days to get all the stuff off there.
Oh,
So I've got a 240-acre piece that we're still hunting down there, but we used to hunt 10 guys on this piece, and now we're down to just me and my buddy Eric,
Right.
which is fine. We'll make it work.
right.
Yeah.
But you've seen the deer we shoot down there.
Yes, I
It's-
have.
Oh, yeah.
Big.
It's incredible. I mean, you get down and it's nothing in the peak of the rut to see 10 to 15, 2 to 5-year-old bucks a day.
No kidding.
This is an Oklahoma buck right here, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's my
right.
biggest buck.
That's
yeah.
a big, yeah. That is a.
Kind of a sleeper state.
Oh, it's a sleeper state.
Yeah.
It
big
ain't
time.
anymore because
No?
the leases have gone through the roof. 'Cause
Oh,
we're right on the Kansas border, so our herd is the same as Kansas.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're 5 miles from Kansas.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. My buddy actually lives there now too, James, and he shot a really nice buck down there, and I was pretty impressed. I was like, wow, it's
Yeah.
way different than here for sure.
And it may not be a sleeper state anymore, but you don't hear guys talk about it like a big buck state like Iowa, Illinois,
Right.
Kansas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think those other three are more. There's still more spotlight on them. Even Ohio,
Yeah.
like Wisconsin, and
I'm sure Pete's thinking right
My
now.
state,
No, there's
state of Oklahoma's figured it out because they almost doubled their licenses this year.
no kidding.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so they
Holy
figured
moly.
it out, huh?
But
Yeah.
what makes Oklahoma different from Kansas is Kansas is a $1 state.
And it's a draw state.
And it's a
now,
draw
too.
state.
Yeah.
And you go 5 miles south into Oklahoma where we are, and it's a buy over the counter, and you're able to shoot 6 deer, $2, 4 doe. Wow. So that makes it, I mean, it's easy. A guy goes down there from Vermont and he sees a 100-inch
Right.
8-pointer.
Right.
First time he goes down, bang, that thing's dead.
Yeah.
So there's a yearling, probably a yearling or maybe a 2-year-old that he
Right.
shot. And then his next bucks, he might shoot a 2 or 3-year-old.
Right.
But he's already killed 2 deer that are
Right.
lesser deer than
Right. Yep.
what you should shoot down there, really.
Yeah.
Now, what's the habitat like down there? Is it a lot of brush and thickets, or
We hunt river bottom, so our river bottoms is cedar and cottonwoods, and then we're in the wheat belt. So I've got 240-acre lease. Out of that, I've got about 30 acres of brush, and that's it. So you're paying a lease for a lot of farmland.
A lot of
but
farmland,
That's why the
yep.
deer are there, and they put weight on in the winter. That's what makes a difference in their antlers down there. Because a deer, they don't stress. They stress in the summer. Like right now, it could be 110. So
Right.
that's their stress time. But during the winter when they're recharging their body after the rut, they're out there eating with the cattle on the wheat fields
Just
all winter long,
protein,
just
baby.
chowing down all winter. Yeah.
No kidding. You know, and I've always thought that like Kansas and Oklahoma and maybe parts of Texas and kind of in that area, that the way those like river bottoms are and the thickets and stuff, it would just make for such good hunting because everything is kind of
Right. It's all naturally pinched down.
It's all pinched down. You know, it just makes for like in the Northeast and like places where there's a lot of like, you know, big timber and stuff. It seems like everything is just very spread out.
Right.
You know, and it's like,
You know, the difference is though, our deer in the Northeast, you're in the big timber, they're all everywhere.
yeah.
Right.
Out there where the wheat fields are, they feel safe out there.
Also, they get just like,
Right.
The big bucks will come to the field edges and they'll look around and they'll run. They'll go out 200-300 yards and then they'll stop.
Right to the middle.
Then they're safe. That's
Yeah.
how
I
they-
mean, yeah.
So
it
could
makes
you, like,
sense.
walk-
unless you're rifle hunting.
Right. Right.
But I've never rifle hunted down there. I just find it kind of unfair.
yeah.
Because you could bow hunting's so much more fun, I think.
Well, and that's
if you're down
probably
there,
why
yeah.
you guys are killing such big deer on that lease because you guys weren't killing them at 4.5 all the time with a rifle.
Oh, and there's a few up there.
Right. Well, no,
I got quite a few what you call dink bucks.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
they're
it is.
still big to us.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
right. I know, but I'm sure some of the intensity of the rut
it's
must
gotta
be
be
so
crazy.
impressive down there. I know we
Yeah.
talked about it before with the buck roars. You're actually here.
Yeah, the snort wheeze. I mean, for 3-4 days, a deer snort wheezing all around you. You're seeing buck fights. You're seeing. Every year I see 1 or 2 deer with their ear hanging because they've gotten their ear ripped off.
Yeah, broken.
I killed one. Actually, he's on the back wall over there.
yeah.
He was called.
that one right there.
Yeah, that
the
one
thick
They
rack?
called him Junior. We hunt next to a farm down there, and there's a couple of young kids and the farmer.
Yep.
And we share pictures and stuff, and the kids name all the deer. They get mad because every year I killed one of their named deer. I killed Junior. I killed Floppy. I killed Banana Tines. So it's just luck. I put a lot of time in, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What's your favorite story hunting down there? Do you have a good story of one of the bucks you shot?
Probably the big one here.
This one?
This one's Banana Tines. My dad
Banana.
named that one.
Really? Yeah.
I was hunting early October, and we were just sitting there and we was watching a little fawn, and then all of a sudden this deer I come in from underneath me, and I just see antlers, and he was a basic 9 with kicker points off his G2s, and he only had to take one more step. I was at full draw, and he took off with the doe. And that same year, my dad had that deer had a pop-up blind 10 feet away. And he took his crossbow, put it up there, shot, and the deer bucked. And he called us up. He was all excited. I got banana. He called me. He says, this thing come in, and he's got tines like a banana. So he would call them banana tines all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And he swear he hit the deer, swear he hit it. He said, yeah, he jumped up. I said, no, he killed it. We looked, and then finally I went into his pop-up blind, and I look, and on the windowsill, there's a broadhead hole through it.
Oh.
I said, Dad, we got a problem.
Oh,
I said, you hit the windowsill. No, I didn't. And we looked around and we found a fletching a little ways out. And then it was broadhead. It was about 60 feet up in the cedar tree.
Oh, boy.
So he had an encounter with it. And then my buddy had it at the same stand that my dad missed him, had the same deer the same year. And he was at full draw 3 times on him. He never got a shot. And following year, I had 3 encounters with full draw with this deer.
Really?
One time I was watching him. He was chasing deer across the river, back and forth across this wheat field, just at sunrise. And he's like an old Brahma bull. He's all steamed up, and the steam's coming off. And I said, why don't you come down for a drink of water? And that deer is like I was talking to him. He come down, you could hear him drinking, and then he come across the river, comes up over the bank, and he's looking towards me. I said, why don't you come over here? He comes walking right to me. I said, you got to be kidding
Meant
me.
to be.
Yeah, I mean, he comes in, he's looking at me at 20 yards, and he turns, he starts to go, and I'm at full draw right now. You just another step, and then all of a sudden a coyote come through, and he took off like a shot.
Oh.
And it's about in tears. I mean, I had another encounter with him, and a doe, he was sitting there, and a doe come by, and he took off with her. The year after that, we had EHD, and we probably lost 60% of our herd. Never had a picture of this deer. Nobody ever saw him. We assumed he was dead.
Yeah.
And then the following year after that, my buddy and I were hunting down there in early October if we'd set up all our stands. And we got one stand. We call it the high rise. It's about 40 feet in the air.
Yep.
We had a camera there, not getting any pictures of any bucks. And we went to pick up our camera, check the cards. Actually, it was before cell cameras were popular. And we pulled the card out of that, and there was this deer. And I couldn't believe it, how big he had gotten.
Oh.
And he'd been through there at 2 a.m. So, and we were leaving. We had to get up at 3 a.m. to go for a flight the next day on day out, heading out. And my buddy had his deer already. He says, "Well, you're not going to sit tonight." I said, "You kidding me?" He says, "I'm going to sit here, all right." So I went there and sat, dead quiet. It was 90 degrees. I'm sitting in my shorts almost. Sun goes down. It was a beautiful night. It started to cool off a little bit. Took my bow down and take my pack, and I'm putting my stuff in my pack, and I looked down, and there he was. Got my bow and shot him in about 3 seconds.
Oh my.
Wow.
It just happened so quick, and he took 3 bounds, flipped over.
Oh,
No
my.
kidding. Jeez.
I couldn't believe it.
That's a dream hunt right there.
Yeah, and he's the biggest deer we've killed. He's dressed at 240.
Wow.
And he grosses 183.
Holy moly.
Yeah, he's a giant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the little piece. I'm assuming that's velvet that's stuck
Little
on
piece
there
of
too.
velvet
Yeah,
stuck
that's
on it.
pretty
He's
awesome.
got to have what? Probably 7.5, 8-inch bases.
7. Yeah.
7.
Yeah.
The
They're
brow
big.
tines are intense too.
All bladed
All
up.
little
and-
jagged,
Yeah, that
looks like
deer,
little daggers sticking out.
his brow tines were as tall as his G2s at one year.
Really?
And
Like they were to the same
They were
height.
the same height.
Woo.
But they were always bladed, but he had been a 9-point most of the time. Then he started picking up this junk.
Points
Yeah.
and age.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
did you ever get him aged? Do you know what
He
he
was
was?
7.5.
7.5.
Yeah.
Do you find that to be like a peak age for antler growth?
I think 5 to 7.
5
down
to
there.
7.
Right.
Yeah.
We
That's
get a
kinda
lot
what I
of
figured.
weird stuff because there's so much fighting.
From year to year.
We get a lot of pedicle damage, which is the base of the antler, and they'll get broken off, and you'll get this weird stuff. Or I mean, that one with the junior over there,
Yeah.
in the fighting pose, he's got weird bases and stuff.
Yeah, he
'cause
does.
of how he broke.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's massy all the way
Yeah,
through.
he's all about attitude. That guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a cool looking mount.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that is awesome. Yeah, that is a giant buck. That's a cool story too. Yeah, it'd be fun to go down in that kind of country and bow hunt sometime.
It's
And try it.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I think it would be cool to try that.
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
more
It's something a little different.
southwestern. You
Right.
know, and like you said, you think the Texas bucks.
Oh,
are
God.
cool.
Yeah, the South Texas where they get big and
Big
I mean they
bodies,
have big
too, yeah.
mass and
You know,
dark, weird dark chocolate antlers, kind of like you
Gotta
see
be
in
cedar and stuff
must
down
be.
there.
Must be. But something that I've been thinking about that I wanted to ask you too. In the time that you've been doing taxidermy, I know this is something, of course, obviously Northeastern people are going to want, listeners are going to want to hear is, do you think in the time that from when you've started to now, what do you think the progression of our deer have done? Do you think it started like we were shooting some nice bucks and then it kind of dipped down during a certain period of time and then it's getting better? You know, what?
Yeah.
I was going to ask the same question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what I've seen is the hunters matured.
Gotcha.
The old timers that would browns down
Yeah.
are dead.
Yeah.
So a lot of them they haven't grown up with YouTube and all this other stuff. They don't know. The newer hunters like you guys are out there, and you know that if you can let a deer get a year or two on it, first of all, he gets smarter. He's harder to kill, and then he's got a chance to get 3 or 4 years old.
Right.
Right.
Where when I was shooting, I don't know how many spike horns I shot. If it is antlers I shot, I was thrilled.
Yeah.
Right,
You know?
right.
No more. How many spike horns can you take to fill a bushel basket?
Yeah.
You know?
Right. About 20. No.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
I would definitely agree. That is definitely something it seemed weird because it started in the Midwest, but now it's definitely creeped its way up here and it's definitely starting to make a very,
Yeah. I always figured and said that hunting culture kind of starts out there and we're always like 20 years behind it. It seems it's kind of like creeping its way up and everybody is kind of doing the QDMA thing and management, which there's good and bad to come out of it, obviously. But I think for the deer herd, I think it's more good than bad.
Right.
With, letting more bucks be on the landscape, shooting some does, that kind of thing.
It seems, if you asked me, seems like you would have a harder time telling me that bigger is, or harder time telling me that things are not bigger when they're better, or better when they're bigger.
Yep.
I mean, other than if maybe you walked into an attic and you were tall and you were hitting your head. You know what I mean? No,
Yep.
there's
No, I
very
know.
few things. Bigger is going to be better. And I think that's kind of
More meat.
right. It's
meat,
growing on people that,
Yeah. Big bucks are cool. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I've had this conversation with my uncle a bunch. He's like, I've never shot a big buck. And I'm like, it's hard to kill a big buck when you shoot the first one you see.
Yeah,
so, I mean, and each to their own. Everybody buys their license.
Yep.
But I think it's definitely a cultural thing that is definitely starting to catch on too.
Yeah, your trail cameras have had a great influence in that because people are able to see what's out there.
That's true.
Right.
Before trail cameras, we used to have those little string things you put across the trail and tell you that something went through there.
Or kick the dirt.
And you could figure out what direction it went, and that's all you knew.
Right.
But, now we can tell, okay.
Exactly,
We've got a couple 8-pointers here and
Right.
a bunch of little guys we can let walk. So.
Right. That's why I've always, it's funny, like when people hear spotlighting, they're like, oh, that. But to me, I went down to do a bow hunt down in Pennsylvania one time. And when we found out that you could spotlight down there, I'm like, I felt like I was breaking the law the whole time. But one thing it did do when you do it, because there was only a certain period of time, you can't have a gun in the vehicle or anything. When you go around and you spotlight like that and you hit a field and all of a sudden you see 40 deer out there and there's 5 bucks and 2 of them it got you excited to hunt the next day. You know what I mean? It was, so I would definitely agree. So do you think the scale of bucks by far is definitely getting better? What you're seeing coming into the shop?
Definitely. I mean, our antler restrictions helped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, since then, like I say, the hunters have matured.
Right.
So they're looking for a different animal. And I would say I've gone from my average buck in Vermont, probably scoring 100 inches, to the average buck I do is probably, it'll go 130.
No kidding.
120,
Yeah.
130.
Yeah.
Which
That's impressive.
Which maybe sounds good for Vermont, but
Right.
which is
Yeah,
good
it
for
is.
Vermont. We
It
always
is.
call that's a good deer for Vermont.
Oh, heck
Right,
yeah.
right.
If you go across the river into New Hampshire,
right. Yeah.
That's like a 3-year-old.
yeah, it's like that's
4-year-old, yeah.
Right.
No, it's funny how that is too. But yeah, I was going to ask the exact same question. It's funny you asked him because as being a taxidermist, you definitely have your finger on the pulse of what guys are killing.
Yeah.
And you've done it for 30 years. You've really gotten to see, and it's awesome to hear that the quality is getting better.
Yeah,
Right.
well,
You know?
you all know Curtis Smiley.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now when he started taking over the trophy program, I mean, we used to score. He'd come and score 10 or 12 here that would make the book.
Right.
Right.
Now he's doing 30 to 35 in my shop that make the book.
Yeah.
Right.
And they've actually got to the point where 110 was their minimum.
Right.
Now they've moved it to 120 this year because we're getting better deer.
Right.
That's awesome.
That's good. For you listeners out there, we are not shooting better deer. Just keep going to where you're not. I'm just kidding.
Vermont is still definitely subpar
Oh God,
to
yeah.
the surrounding areas, I would say. But when I was a kid, like 2003, 4, 5, I mean, there was a couple years where the biggest buck in the state was a 134 or 135. Right. That was the biggest one.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, this year I've had a 165.
Yep.
I had a 176 come in from Vermont.
From this year?
From this year.
Oh, yeah. The big
the antlers came together, the beams, and came out. They'd never seen deer like that. But
he was the best one this year,
the best
right?
one this year. Yeah, with a 12-inch spread.
Giant buck.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah, no, but I also wonder on the other side of the coin of the score, getting more bucks that score up, is social media, is it highlighting more of those deer nowadays that maybe didn't get highlighted back then? You see what I'm saying? Like, are more guys getting them scored and getting them?
I think it helps, but I think there's more out there.
More out there too.
Right.
Yeah. But I just wonder back in the day if maybe a lot of bucks just didn't get scored or whatever.
Well, and I'm sure that happens. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like we were talking about where I was just reading a magazine, I think it was 2 weekends ago, North American whitetails. This story comes up about this buck. It sat in a guy's basement for 33 years.
In Illinois?
And an electrician went in, saw the deer on the wall and said to the guy, "My God, have you ever gotten that thing scored?" And he's like, "No, I'm a bird hunter. I just decided to sit for deer that night, and that's the buck I shot." And he was like, "Gosh, you should really." And that deer is now the new number 3 typical to ever exist. It's like you just there. I'm sure there's more of those all over the country, and I'm sure there's some here in Vermont that probably are sitting in barns.
I know of a few that would be top 2 or 3.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
And guys won't have them scored because they're afraid that they'll get taken away because their grandfather killed it illegally. And I've told them 100 times, Curtis is not going to take your head away. It was 70 years ago. Like statute of limitations. The guy's dead. Like statute of limitations, 3 years on a deer, like,
Right.
But they're like, nope, and I know of one in this area that's like a mid 180s, killed under a light in the 60s. Ungodly deer, like 30-inch beams, 7-8-inch circumferences, like just a giant. But anyways, the number 1 non-typical from Vermont was found that way, the milk house buck.
Really?
That was in a milk house in Norton.
Yeah, I'm not sure where.
Somewhere up there in the Northeast Kingdom. And it was in a milk house. And they're like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Right,
and they're
right.
like, Vermont.
Yep.
And then it ended up being, I think it's like 194 or something.
My God.
Gross, cheap. It's kind of a funky looking buck. It's not super like photogenic. It's kind of spindly and it's kind of, he's weird. He's kind of a weird looking buck.
You might have to try to find a picture of that one. See if you can post it up on Instagram.
Yeah, I could. I don't know if there's any pictures of it online, but did you remount that buck?
No.
No. I don't know if somebody did.
No, I did the Grant buck a few years ago, which is the number 1 Vermont rifle killed one.
Buck. Oh yeah, the one
It was a perfect 12 point. Yeah.
Oh, the muzzleloader? Or no? What am I thinking?
It was shot years ago, and we did replicas of it. Actually, the family wants me to do another set this year.
Okay. I thought the Tweed River. Oh, it's the number 1 shot by a hunter.
Hunter shot.
Okay.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, Tweed River's
the number 1.
The number 181 or something like that.
Yeah.
Typical. Yeah.
I've told you about him before.
Right. Yep.
And there's no pictures of that deer online either. I've tried to.
No.
It's
even more impressive buck than that. I think is a Durkee buck.
The Durkee buck.
I've heard the name.
Is,
of that
it was
buck.
a 171 8-point. It's
from Vermont.
It's Vermont. It was found in the White River back in the 30s, I believe.
Boy, they're always found.
Dude, that's the craziest thing.
Well, this one I think was jacked because it had a bullet hole through its brow tine.
Well, that
Gotcha.
So it was probably one of these deals where they shot at it and didn't go down immediately, and they kept going. So and it ended up in the brook, the White River or whatever, and they found it in spring.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about the Vermont mystery buck? I was telling him about that one too. No, it's a big set of antlers, and it kind of looks like a mule deer, and it was claimed
I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
And they had it tested, and it came back whitetail, and they claimed they had writing that said it was from Vermont, and it would have been like 190 or something, like typical or non-typical. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've looked at that, and it's a mule.
It's a muley. Yeah.
You can tell by the.
It looks like a muley.
You can tell by the bases how the striations of the whitetail go straight up like along the brow tine. These are kind of a sideways, spiral to them a little bit.
They claimed it was Island Pond, I believe.
Oh, jeez.
And they had it mounted on a whitetail.
Yeah, it was.
It's a mega giant mule deer, even though it's a monster.
I mean, almost like that one there.
Yeah, kind of like that. More low though, low and wide.
Right.
Yeah, that's a bookhead. I wish I'd shot that one.
Really? What does that one go?
That one's 195.
195.
Oh,
it's funny.
I bought it for $100.
Bought it for $100.
Not bad.
The rack, yeah.
Holy.
Yeah.
Some people don't know what they have.
No.
Yeah, a guy doubled his money. He bought it for $50. So.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Is that a deek?
Nope. Those are German roe deer.
Because that looks like a deek to me too.
Yeah, those are.
Yeah, those are roe deer from Germany.
Wow.
Yeah.
They're too cute to shoot.
Yeah.
Here.
All right, Pete. Well, this has been awesome. I want to be mindful of your time. You got to go deal with some jerky. Do you
Yeah,
wanna-
smoker.
actually, we're doing some smoking. My son's got a
Yeah.
meat business, does jerky and smoking, and he does venison turned into anything you want, sausage. And he's got an open house actually this weekend on Saturday, 4 to 8.
And do you want to whereabouts?
It's 281 CCC Road in Shrewsbury.
There you go.
So
Yeah. So this episode's going to be coming out tomorrow morning,
Tomorrow.
4
Okay.
a.m.
Yeah.
So this
I
is
mean, he's got
Perfect time.
everything. He's got we're doing pulled pork actually. It's what's on the smoker now. Smoked kielbasa. We got venison hot dogs to try. He's got like 10 different sausages that we'll have to try in patties. Jerky for sale. He's got smoked macaroni and cheese.
no kidding.
I mean, all kinds
and
of
what's
stuff.
the name of the business?
Chimera Meats.
Chimera Meats.
Chimera Meats.
Yeah, and yeah, he's done well with it. He's excellent with flavors.
No,
That's
my
good, yeah.
Excellent. You guys got a chance to try.
Yeah, I
some.
like the
Yeah.
hickory. It was good. Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool, man.
Now his shop and your shop are right back.
Yeah, he
Back
got
to-
one end of it, and I got the
Yeah,
other.
there you go.
And then we
Perfect.
got my showroom in the middle with my pool table.
There you go. Get some
Yeah.
good food. Go see some deer mounts.
Yep.
It's a win-win.
All right, guys. And yeah, thank you for your time.
You
Yes,
betcha.
thank you very much, Pete.
Right.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
appreciate
Thank
it. Thank
you.
you
Yeah,
very,
awesome.
very
Good
much.
enough.
All right, boys. We'll see you on the next one.